All right. Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Dr. William Lee. I am so excited for our conversation. I'm so honored to have him as a guest on the show. I went out and sought him out so that he can bring his knowledge about food and nutrition to you. So I hope you stick around and learn from this incredible guest. Welcome, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Myrna. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. All right. So with that set up, let me give you a brief introduction to Dr. William Lee. He is an internationally renowned physician, scientist, and author of the New York Times bestseller, Eat to Beat Disease, the New Science of How Your Body Can Heal Itself. His groundbreaking research has led to the development of more than 30 new medical treatments that impact care for more than 70 diseases, including diabetes, blindness, heart disease, and obesity. His TED Talk, Can We Eat to Starve Cancer, has garnered more than 11 million views. Dr. Lee has appeared on Good Morning America, CNN, CNBC, Rachel Ray, Live with Kelly and Ryan, and he has been featured in USA Today, Time Magazine, The Atlantic, and O Magazine. He is the president and medical director of the Anglo-Genesis, I know I was going to mess that up, Anglo-Genesis.
It's actually pronounced angiogenesis.
Angiogenesis. All right, yes,
Perfect.
Foundation, which leads global initiatives on food as medicine. His newest book, like I mentioned earlier, is Eat to Beat Diet, Burn Fat, Heal Your Metabolism, and Live Longer, was released March 21st, 2023. So I heard Dr. Lee on a podcast, and I was so blown away that I asked him to be on this show. So I am so excited to get into this conversation, Dr. Lee. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show and, to sharing your knowledge with my listeners. So as we dive in, you are a physician scientist. I guess the only person I can think of that is a physician and a scientist is Deepak Chopra. But so can you show how you discovered food as medicine? And he's got a different path. He is into, consciousness. So.
Right. Well, thank you. So I'm trained as a physician. Internal medicine is what my background is. So that means that I take care of men and women, young and old, healthy and sick. And as a doctor, my focus has always been on trying to maintain people in their optimal state of health. And that's a little bit different than how most doctors are trained, including myself. We're trained to diagnose and treat disease. But I always wanted to keep my eye on the ball of health. And the interesting thing is how little the medical community actually focuses on health. Like, we're taught lots and lots and lots of facts and information about what diseases are and the latest research on disease. But in fact, my question has always been, so what is actually health? When I used to ask my professors in medical school about this, they would say, oh, well, that's easy. Health is when you're not sick. And I found that to be really a frustrating answer because I wanted to know what was responsible for health. Why are we healthy? and maybe another way of asking about it is, why don't we get sick more often? So I'm also a scientist, as you mentioned. I'm what is known as a vascular biologist. Vascular just means blood vessels, and I say study the circulation. Why is that important? Is because we've got about 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels packed inside all of our bodies. Mention that 60,000 miles. That's long enough that if we were to pull out all the blood vessels and line them up end to end, we'd form a thread that would go around the Earth twice. Now, these are the highways and byways of all of the oxygen that we breathe and the nutrients that we eat. And so when our blood vessels are healthy, we're actually healthy. So what I started to do is put together these questions I had. What is health? how do our organs get nutrients and cells, and which ones are more important? And then the other part of how I came into this is that, I grew up in a family with an Asian cultural background. My family always had great food. I grew up in a city that had these folk festivals that celebrated different cultures and the foods that different cultures ate. It was they loved doing it. It was a really festive event. And then when I finished college, before I went to medical school, I did a gap year, and this was long before the Mediterranean diet became popular. I actually lived in Italy and I lived in Greece, and I was there to study food, culture, and health. I was very interested in knowing how did all these components actually fit together in today's world, and how did it compare to history, to how it was, hundreds or thousands of years ago. And so when you kind of put all this stuff together, what I realized is that the missing tool in today's toolbox for medical doctors is food. But the power that we do have today that we didn't have hundreds or thousands of years ago is science. We can actually dig in to understand how our foods are beneficial to us. So when it comes to food and health, it's not just about the food. You hear so much about superfood this and super supplement that. Look, that's marketing. When it comes to food and health, it's not just about the food, it's about how our body responds to what we put inside it. We put something good inside it, it'll actually allow our body to flourish. And so our research and what I do tells us why, and in many cases, how much we need.
Wow. Wow, that's excellent. So as you were talking, I remembered something that I heard before, and you mentioned it almost at the end of that, is that it's not necessarily the food, as how our bodies respond to the food. And I'm thinking that they're saying that our digestive system, everybody's digestive system is unique, like our fingerprints. So are you saying that each person responds to food differently, or can we put them in a whole basket?
Oh,
All
what a
humans.
what a great question, Myrna. So basically, here's what we know from the latest research that's been done. Our bodies are hardwired from the time we're born to work in a certain way. Our hearts beat in a certain way, our digestive systems work in a certain way, and our brains, our eyes, our fingers and toes are all engineered to work in a particular way, specific way. And it's largely the same for everyone. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by largely the same. If you went and I went to our own respective computer stores to buy a laptop, the same laptop, all right, and we pulled it out of the box in our own homes, you where you are and me where I am, and we plugged it in, booted it up, okay, the operating system of that laptop, if we got the same model, should work exactly the same way. But over time, I'm slamming away at my computer, you're slamming away at yours. The way that our laptop functions, how efficiently and the speed, whatever else we load in our computer, is going to change a little bit, so that then my laptop will function a little bit differently than yours. I download a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of documents, and I'm sure my computer is going to be slower than yours.
Lower,
But
right? Yes.
but my point is that we all come out of the box. I mean, we're all arrive on the planet
I
in very
love
much the
that.
same way. But then
Yes.
individually, we actually develop our own thing. And so in that sense, we are all individual, but we're actually minted, and we come out on this planet really exactly the same way. So our digestive system is hardwired to, we put food into our mouth, our brain senses it, our pancreas, one of our endocrine organs, releases insulin. The insulin helps us draw energy out of our food. The energy is packed into our cells, including our fat cells. And then the food trickles down through our small intestines. We absorb all the nutrients. It keeps on tumbling further down. And guess what? It actually feeds our healthy gut bacteria lower in our gut. Healthy gut bacteria gut health being very important for overall health. And then finally, we eliminate everything else, and then we poop everything else out. And that's really how we're generally hardwired. So any deviation from that general pathway winds up being largely the result of who we are, how we lived, things we're exposed to. And that's the individualization. So I'm telling you that we all actually are designed to work the same way, but we are all also individuals. And so our
Mm.
patterns actually vary a little bit from side to side.
Right. Okay. So I get that now. I love that. What an awesome explanation. So yes, even though our digestive system, for instance, somebody might eat certain foods and then they have a reaction to it, and I might eat certain foods and I don't, and that's
Mm,
because of my lifestyle or my environment or genetics or whatever that's going to change
correct.
that. I
Correct.
love that.
Absolutely correct.
I love that. All right, so let's get to the foods. Your
Mm,
work is all about foods, and I want to get right into something that I thought it was interesting, and I know you've been in a lot of podcasts, and we're trying to make mine a little different, or ask a little bit of different questions. So, in your book summary, you list probably about a dozen foods that we're supposed to eat to be healthy, or the diet that we should eat or put into our bodies, this computer. um and right at the top there you've got tomatoes,
mhm.
and and Dr. Stephen Gundry, I wasn't going to call the name, but I am, says that tomatoes is not a vegetable, it's a fruit, and it's bad for you because it's a lectin. So tell us, why did you put tomatoes at the top of your list, and why? What is tomato good for us? Obviously, it's good for us because you've listed it. But why is it good for us?
Yeah, that's it. Listen, first of all, I love tomatoes, and I have some things I can actually show you that I'm because I'm standing in front of a demo table. So, but I know this is radio as well, so we'll talk about it. Okay, first of all, my work is really I'm focused on what are the foods that we should add to our lifestyle to enhance our health. There's a lot of people out there who are very well intentioned and very smart who actually talk about, they focus on things to cut out of your life. I think there's so many and plenty of people that actually do that. And some of them are actually really on target with the things that they say you should cut out. Tomatoes is not one of them. And I'll tell you how we know this for a fact is that,
Okay.
and I read about this in my books, there's abundant studies in humans at the population level, like 35,000 people, or at the small group level, like a couple of dozen people, or at the individual level, where we do know that people who eat more tomatoes actually are able to extract healthful benefits that you can actually measure. And so, and I'll come back to the lectin story in 1 second, but I'll just give you the evidence. For example, there was a study called the Harvard Health Professionals Study that looked at 35,000 men over 25 years. And what they found when they measured tomatoes that people were eating, they found that men who ate cooked tomatoes 2 to 3 times a week. How much was each serving of tomato? About a half a cup of cooked tomatoes. That's hardly any tomato sauce at all. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you were eating pasta and I gave you only half a cup, you'd ask me for another one. Okay, for sure. Now, so it doesn't take very much, but it shows that 2 to 3 servings of cooked tomatoes, or half a serving of cooked tomatoes 2 to 3 times a week lowers the risk of prostate cancer by about
Oh,
30%. Okay, now
wow.
what? Now this research study dug further into why this is. Now, the reason is because tomatoes contain a natural chemical found in nature called lycopene.
Yes.
Lycopene actually is very beneficial because when we eat it, it goes into our body. And one of the things that lycopene does in our body is it prevents cancer cells from being able to get its own blood supply. So it
Wow.
literally cuts off the blood flow that might be feeding a cancer. You can starve a cancer by eating a tomato. All right. Now, um, uh, and this study actually dove even further. They measured the amount of lycopene in the blood of the patients who were eating the tomato, so they could actually figure out how much of the good stuff from the tomato was found in the blood, and it actually was correlated to the aggressiveness and the presence of cancer itself. Okay, now, so this is pretty convincing evidence. It's been shown now in other studies, been shown in a laboratory as well. So I started out with a human study, and I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you other studies have shown that the lycopene in tomato which, as an aside, is a natural chemical that likes to dissolve in oil. In fact, as a scientist, I can tell you we call it fat soluble because it dissolves in oily, fatty material. And so that's why, by the way, when you're actually cooking tomato sauce, it's great to add a little olive oil. I like to cook, so I like to talk about cooking. Olive
Mm-hmm.
oil, tomatoes, you get this wonderful sauce. And that actually makes the lycopene a lot easier for your body to absorb.
Delicious.
In fact,
Nice.
if you saute tomatoes in olive oil compared to sauteing tomatoes in water, your body will absorb 3 times as much lycopene. Now, where does the lycopene go into once it's in your body? Well, guess what? It likes to dissolve in fat. So, like a heat seeking missile, the lycopene from a tomato will go straight into body fat. In fact, this has been studied by researchers at Tufts University. Where does it go first? They studied in a group of women. It goes right to belly fat first. Where does it go
Wow.
next? It goes to the thigh. Where does it go after that? It goes to the butt fat. Okay. Belly fat, thigh fat, butt fat. That's where lycopene goes when you eat a tomato. All right. And by the way, what does lycopene do in fat? Well, it actually fights harmful body fat. In fact, studies have shown that eating tomatoes that contain lycopene can actually shrink away harmful body fat, reduce waist size, and help you lose weight at the same time. Now, obviously, it depends on how you're cooking, but this is human research I'm talking about. All
Wow.
right. Notice I didn't mention lectins once, and notice that I did not actually. I gave you outcomes that matter to people: weight
Yes.
loss, waist
Yes.
circumference,
Body
waist
fat.
size,
Yes.
body
Right.
fat.
Mm-hmm.
I talked
Cancer.
about
Those
cancer.
things.
All right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So here's the bottom line. In no study has the eating of tomatoes been shown to cause increased sickness or increased mortality. This is actually something that has a kind of a murky story behind it. I'm happy to go into it if you'd like, but there's a reason that this urban legend came about. First of all, uh, uh, hundreds of years ago, when the Spaniards brought back tomatoes from South America, and they brought it back to Europe. The Europeans that received these incredible, they used to be golden, by the way,
Mm.
the
I
original
remember
tomatoes.
those. Now they're all
Yeah,
red, in my
they,
country they used to be golden too. Yes,
that's right. And
green,
by
a
the
little bit
way,
of gold. Right.
that's exactly right. And by the way, do you know what they call a tomato in Italy? What the Italian word for tomato is?
No.
Pomodoro.
Okay.
Pomodoro. Pom is apple because it looks like an apple. Doro
Mm.
is gold, apple of
Mm.
gold.
Gold
And so
apple. Right.
basically,
Right.
this
Right.
is this is actually how the Mediterranean people, when they
Mm.
saw the first tomatoes, they thought they were golden apples. Okay, they look like
Okay.
golden apples. Now they didn't recognize it, so they sent the leaves of the plant over to people that were botanists, and they're like, "What the heck kind of plant is this?" And the botanists didn't recognize it either. These are Europeans who didn't have an experience with South American plants, and they try to match up the leaves, and the leaves kind of look like nightshade leaves. Let's just call it
Mm.
nightshade. All right. Now,
Mm.
nightshade is well known, like belladonna, to be poisonous. Okay, now you can
Okay.
kind of see how this urban legend started. A
Right.
tomato is a nightshade, and nightshades are
Mm-hmm.
poisonous. So, therefore, tomatoes must be poisonous. Well, actually, what
Mm-hmm.
happened is that people in the early days did get poisoning from tomatoes. But you know why? Because the wealthy Europeans who got the gifts of the pomodoro, the tomatoes from South America, they didn't eat them. They thought they were just beautiful. So they displayed them on lead pewter trays. And
Oh,
the acid of the tomato absorbed the lead from the
the lead,
trays,
right.
and then people were
Mm.
getting lead poisoning. Oh,
Mm.
look, now it's the tomato, the quote nightshade, that's causing poison, but it's really kind of looks like nightshade. And there was a reason that the lead got into the tomato. So, what did the wealthy people do? They threw them out the window, and guess where they landed? They landed in the peasants' property. The peasants planted the tomatoes. They didn't have expensive
Lead,
leadpeter
right, right,
trays.
right.
They ate them. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, hey man, this tastes really good. Let's have some more. And that's why a lot of the tomato dishes in the Mediterranean were actually originally peasant food. All right.
Right.
Now, lectins. Let's talk about lectins for a second. Lectins are, in fact, a natural type of chemical that is found in lots of plants. There are hundreds of lectins. And it is true, there are some that are extremely poisonous. but none of those poisonous ones are in a tomato. And so again, a well-intentioned person might say, "Oh, it's got lectins in it. Well, lectins are poisonous." Well, the God is in the details, right? So not every lectin is poisonous, and none of the poison ones have to be in tomatoes. So I hope I gave you a little bit of a, and your listeners a
Yes,
little bit of a
yes, yes,
kind of a light bulb in the head to say, "Oh, that's the
yes,
reason." Well, look,
yes.
now I'm diving back in to eat tomatoes again.
Yes, yes, yes. So no wonder it's on the top of your list. Wow, that is great. But like I said, I eat them because I've heard different things on them. One, it's good, and one, it's bad. But whenever I eat it, I have this thing in the back of my mind that says that they're not good for me. But I eat them anyway. In fact, you're talking about sauteing tomatoes. I saw you on Instagram, and you had this really beautiful dish that was sauteed with tomatoes. It looked, I think you called it goulash or something, but to me it looked like chickpeas. So I love
Um,
chickpeas. And that's what I did. Right now in my fridge, I have sauteed tomatoes with onions and chickpeas. So yeah, it reminded me to that's what I love. And whenever I do cook, I saute my onions and my tomatoes. So I would continue doing that. I'm just gonna put more of it now.
well, fantastic. And by the way, chickpeas, which are also incredibly nutritious, a good source of protein, good source of dietary fiber, it's got some good polyphenols in it, are
Mhm.
another metabolism activating food that, is really healthy. So when you talk about, putting sauteed tomatoes with chickpeas, and onions are also really, really healthy. Onions actually have a natural substance in it called quercetin.
Mhm.
Quercetin activates your metabolism and helps burn harmful body fat as well. So
Amazing.
you've wound up actually taking the lycopene in tomatoes, the quercetin in onions, and chickpeas to
Chickpeas.
really help
Wow.
fine tune your metabolism.
Wow. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. All right, so let's talk about fat, which is really one of the things I wanted to dive into because I heard you talk on the podcast and then it's also in the summary of your book about fat. There's probably another lectin story where we have been told that fat is bad, but you said that we shouldn't actually fear fat. So let's talk about fat. Should we fear fat?
Okay, look, I'm gonna start where everyone is and throw myself under the bus, right? So we as adults, we all have this kind of instinctive, knee-jerk negative reaction to fat. So all of us have stepped out of the shower in the morning, looked out of the corner of our eye at the mirror, and you see a lump or
Yes.
a bump that you don't want to be there, right? And so what do you do
Yeah.
immediately? You're like, I got to work out. I got to eat better. I got to do it. And then the
Yes.
next thing you do, you step on a scale, right? And if
Yes.
that number isn't the exact number you were hoping for, it makes you
Yes.
madder and you're more
Yes.
frustrated and you basically say, I got to do something about this. I don't like what I'm seeing either way. Now, it's not just in the shower, but if you wheel your grocery cart in the grocery store by the butcher section, by the meat counter, and you see a big, thick rind of fat around a steak or something, immediately you go, ugh, I hope nobody eats
I
that,
want it.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Or even
like
if you buy it, you cut it out.
exactly. So you're nodding, and so I know that I've got you where everyone really starts, including
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
But here's the
Yes.
bottom line: this is our adult reaction to fat. But there's another adult reaction to fat. What happens when we actually see a baby? We smile. We love
No,
seeing babies.
I
But you know
heard
what?
you say that, and I thought that is exactly where I am right now. My daughter just had a preemie, and I would love for her to be fat.
Okay. Well, preemies are still on their way to actually gaining the kind of baby fat
Yes,
that
I know,
nobody
but I know
has.
what you mean. You
But you
said
know what?
when you
Like
see a baby, you know that the baby's healthy because the baby has got some chunks. I
chubby.
love that.
Yeah, you're looking at a chunky, funny, lovely baby, big
Yes,
pot belly, big fat cheeks, arms
yes,
and legs that look like those circus the balloons that the clown makes into a circus animal, a little poodle. All right.
yeah,
So what I did as a researcher, I went back to say, well, wait a minute. Obviously, fat can't be all bad if babies have them, and maybe the adult reaction we have is just the wrong instinct, because if we smile when babies have them, where does fat actually start? And as it turns out, our body fat was created when we were still in our mom's womb.
Yes.
Okay, so when your mom's egg met your dad's sperm and it turned into a ball of cells that will become the future you, the future us, one of the first tissues that form is our blood vessels. And that's what I study, blood vessels. Why? Because every organ and every cell in the body requires blood flow, needs
Right.
nutrients.
Right.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The next tissue that forms are nerves. And the reason is that every organ ultimately will need instructions, and nerves are the wires that give those
Communication.
instructions.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The next tissue that forms is fat. Okay, fat cells. They're called adipose tissue, adipose cells.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but let me get your listeners and viewers a picture of this. Fat cells that form in the womb resemble a piece of bubble wrap. You know the stuff you wrap delicate
Mm-hmm.
things before you
Mm-hmm.
ship them in a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
box?
Lumpy.
Bubble wrap,
Right. Right.
lumpy. Every little bubble in bubble wrap is a fat cell. And the bubble wrap of fat in the womb forms around blood vessels. Whoa, why is that? Okay. Now, and this is even before you have a body shape. The fat is wrapping around because ultimately, one of the things that our fat cells, adipocytes, do is they serve as fuel tanks for the energy that we eat in our food. We eat some food later on, the energy is extracted into our blood. Our blood has to store it someplace, and our fat cells are the fuel tanks for the
Mm-hmm.
fuel that comes from our food. So
Mm-hmm.
let's park the fuel tanks right next to where the fuel is coming from in our blood. Makes a lot of sense. All right, fast
Mm-hmm.
forward, we get the fat, chubby baby. All right. And after breastfeeding and when the baby's starting to eat solid food, okay, um, what actually happens is that we eat food, and I mentioned this earlier. We put food in our mouth. Our pancreas, which is an organ, an endocrine organ, releases insulin. Insulin is the sort of a metabolism hormone that draws energy, blood sugar, and everything else from our blood into our cells, so we can blink and our heart can beat and we can laugh and do all this kind of stuff. Energy, okay, and anything that extra that we don't need, any extra energy gets popped into the fat tank, the fuel
Right.
tank. That's
Right.
healthy. That's exactly what we need every single day. That's why we're alive, by the way. And to think
Right.
about it, I give people this is, by the way, I'm telling you the story of metabolism, which is what I write about in my new book, Eat to Beat Your Diet. So I tell people, here's how to think about metabolism. It's simply how our body goes around using energy to drive the engine of our body. Very similar to when you're actually driving a car. You don't think about the fact that your car is actually extracting
Right.
gasoline and powering your engine. Only time you even think about the fuel in your engine is when your fuel gauge reads empty.
That's right.
Then
The
what
gas
do?
light comes on. Right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
then you pull
Yes.
over to the filling station, take the nozzle, pop it into the gas tank, fill it all up. It goes click, no more gas. It's put it back and you drive off. Okay.
Right.
Now, here's exactly how our body works. This is a simple way for everyone to understand metabolism. Our metabolism is how our body gets fuel from into our cells, and the fuel that we have comes from food. We eat the food. There's fuel. Our metabolism takes that fuel, puts it into the fuel tank, and when our fuel tank starts running on empty, we don't pull over to the filling station. We pull over to the dinner table. We pull over to the refrigerator or to the restaurant or the pantry. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're doing by choosing the food that we eat, we're actually giving ourselves energy and filling up our tanks. Now, two things. You know that you can actually fill your car, your engine with gas with better quality gas versus really poor quality
Mm-hmm.
gas. When you use high
I like
quality
it.
gas, you know that your car is going to run longer and better, more efficiently over a long haul. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and put some crappy fuel in this time. Once or twice, not going to make a big difference. But if every single time you're at the pump, you put in the lowest, crappiest fuel you can actually get, the lowest quality fuel, listen, if you compare your car to somebody else who's taking care to put good quality fuel, your car's not going to run quite as long. That's basically the same analogy as food. When we choose the good quality food, it's good quality fuel for our body. Our engine's going to run better. If you deliberately choose something crappy, something to snack on once in a while, no biggie. Our engine's going to tolerate that. If you every single day, week in, week out,
Mm-hmm.
for years, choose the poorest quality food you can get,
Mm-hmm.
ultra processed food, artificial preservatives, artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, all
Yeah.
that. Okay. And
Fast
you use
food.
that to look
Yes,
fast food, all that
yes.
kind of junky stuff. All right. Sodas. I can tell you that over time, your engine of the body is not going to run very well. So again, so the quality of the fuel of the food that we eat makes a big difference. The other thing has to do with the quantity of the food that we eat. So, for example, imagine, when you're filling up your tank in your car, when the gas tank is full, it goes click and no more
Yeah.
fuel comes out, right? Imagine if there was no click and the
Just run
gas kept on
over.
coming out.
Yes.
The gas tank would fill up, it'd come right out of the car, spill down the side of
Right.
the car, around the tires, pool around your feet, and then you'd be standing in the middle of a toxic, flammable, dangerous mess, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
You
when
must
we
be a
eat,
parent. You're very good with analogies.
well, I've been teaching people all about the complicated concepts of science. So, look,
Yes.
here's the thing: when we're eating food, guess what? We don't have a clicker on our nozzle for food. We can keep on eating. All right.
Yeah.
Now, when we eat, remember I told you, insulin comes out, stores the fuel, some goes into the fat, into our fat cells. A single fat cell, think about the bubble wrap, the little bubble in the
Mm-hmm.
bubble wrap.
Mm-hmm.
One single fat cell can expand 100 times when you load it up with fat.
Mm-hmm.
100 times. Okay, so now you're
That's how
eating
we just
food.
get larger. Right.
You're filling
Okay.
you're filling up. You're filling up. Okay, you got your tank. Oh, you don't eat too much. You're done eating. Okay, put the dishes away. You're done eating. You drive off. Okay, and now what happens is your body will switch into gear when you're not eating to start burning that fuel that's stored in your fat tanks. All right,
Mm-hmm.
but if you keep on eating, if you are overeat, because there's no clicker, you fill up your fat gas tanks, your fuel tanks. All right. Oh, you're still eating? You got to fill some more, 100 times bigger. Oh, wait, more coming? Let's fill that one up too, 100 times. Now you've run out of fat
Wow.
cells. Okay. Then, like your body goes, you know what? I think we need to make more fuel tanks. So your body will take stem cells that can generate more fat cells and say, let's go make some more fat then. We need more fuel tanks. Another fat
Wow.
cell is made. Fill that baby up 100 times. Wait, still more food? You're kidding me. Nope, here it comes. Let's make another one. Let's make another fat. And you can kind of see over time, you start to build up bigger and bigger amounts of fat. Now, here's the really kind of unfortunate part: a fat will grow like a tumor, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And because every tissue requires a blood supply, right? This we talked about. When you actually grow the fat mound so big, the center of the fat doesn't have enough blood supply anymore. It gets starved and it starts to
Mm-hmm.
die. When the center of your
Mm-hmm.
fat starts to die, inflammation sets in,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've got inflamed fat. Fat's on
Mm.
fire, and that inflammation leaks out of
Just
the
like
fat.
your analogy of the gas tank
That's
overflowing,
right.
right?
That's right. And now the fire leaks out and it's all over your body. Now your whole body's inflamed,
Ooh.
and that's what sets us up for chronic disease. So the good news, I've kind of just given you some bad news about overeating and eating poor quality food. The good news is that we can choose better quality foods. And by the way, we can choose foods that will help us burn down the extra fuel stored in our fuel tanks. And that's really why
Mm-hmm.
I call my latest book, Eat to Beat Your Diet. You don't actually have to
Mm-hmm.
go on a restrictive elimination deprivation diet. You
I
can
love
actually
it.
choose
I love
foods
it.
to add to your diet to be able to burn away
Okay.
harmful body fat.
All right. Well, one circle back.
It's more joyful to know what are
Mhm.
the foods that you should add to your diet.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yes. I definitely need to learn that for sure. I absolutely love it. Right. Awesome. Now, you also say something that is, we're going to switch a little bit now. You also said something that I definitely want to cover. I've had two or three guests or so talk about intermittent fasting. I'm doing it myself right now.
Mm.
And I'm working with this 15-hour window. You stop eating at 7 and you eat at 11 or 12 or something. and and I know the benefits of intermittent fasting. It's not just for weight loss. It's almost the same thing as the foods are doing. It's just good for you. It's making your body, I even heard a story recently where I have this friend of mine that she was taking care of someone that had dementia, and the lady went, was, she called her expiring, and when she was dying, she stopped eating, and she
Hmm.
tells me that that her body reset itself because she stopped eating, and she lasted a little longer because of the fasting. But what my question is that you're saying that a 12-hour fast is almost as beneficial as a 15, 16, 24 hour. I don't know if you said 24, you said 15. Let me put words in your mouth. But tell us why, because most people have a 12-hour fast. They go to sleep and they don't eat, right? So tell
That's
us
right.
about that.
All right. Well, look, I mean, there's a new science of the metabolism that helps to explain why intermittent fasting is beneficial. And intermittent fasting isn't just sort of this newfangled fad or trend that somebody came up with that people like lots and lots of people are following now. It's the most natural thing in our in to who we are as people. You already said it, Myrna, which is that fasting is not eating, and when we're sleeping, we're not eating, and so when we're sleeping, we're fasting. And in fact, when we get up and eat our first meal, it's called break fast
Fast. Yes.
breakfast. All right.
Right.
So
Right.
there's nothing, there's no magic about this. This is actually what we do. What we do know is this. Let me set the stage for you. Remember what I told you, when we eat, our insulin goes up to be able to draw energy into our cells so that, and then anything extra gets stored into our fat. Well, when we're not eating, meaning when we're fasting, insulin goes down. And when our insulin levels in our blood are down, our metabolism switches gears. Okay. And when
Mm-hmm.
it switches gears, it goes from energy storing mode to energy burning mode. In other words, it goes
Okay.
from storing energy into fat to burning energy in fat, fat burning. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what did I just tell you is that basically when we're sleeping, our body switches, our metabolism switches into fat burning mode. When we're sleeping, we're fighting fat naturally. Okay, so let's talk a little about intermittent fasting in that kind of like the 15, 18 hour or even 24-hour zone. Before I go into the specific time windows, I think that it's important for everyone listening to this and watching this to recognize that, in our age, in our day and time, in our period of where we live today, we are surrounded by abundance. So, back in the Stone Age, but even going back 50 years, not everyone had enough to eat. And, unfortunately, there are still groups, communities where people are still going hungry every single day. So I don't want to downplay that by any means, but our bodies were hardwired to actually respond to periods where we're not eating, longer periods when we're not eating. The problem that we have right now that's resulting in a lot of overweight, obesity, diabetes, and all those other problems has to do with overabundance. We got too much of not so good stuff that we can't stop eating. All right. And what that does, that overabundance takes
Mm-hmm.
us further and further and further away from the shores of what we naturally do, which is intermittently fast because we're sleeping. Now, let me kind of tell you. Now let's talk about intermittent fasting. Um, uh, the classic intermittent fasting program actually is actually 16 hours of fasting or 18 hours of fasting and 6 hours of eating. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
18-6. All right,
Right.
and 18 hours of fasting that's a pretty big commitment. You gotta plan your day around it. It's not exactly natural, but with that much time that you're not eating, your metabolism switch into fat burning mode. You're definitely going to be burning down your fuel. And in addition to burning down your fuel, as you pointed out, Myrna, your body does a reset. Your gut microbiome resets, your stem cells reset, a lot of your immune system resets. So it's actually overall beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. People who are really ill when they're fasting, not starving, when they're fasting, actually, they wind up actually resetting a lot of their health defenses. So that's why one of the reasons why it's good. But
Mm-hmm.
it turns out that you don't have to be a slave to say, I have to be a robot and fast 18 hours or it's not going to work. All right. And
Right.
this is what I say in my book is that we all need to be very reasonable because if we want to actually have healthy diets and lifestyles And when I'm using diet, I'm not talking about a program. I'm just saying the way that we actually conduct our lives. You want to do something you can stick with it that works for you, your individual life, your patterns, your responsibilities, how you kind of roll is going to be different than what I do, because we're all just individuals. So here's the thing. It turns out that if you actually fast for 18 hours where you're not eating, you're going to actually lose weight for sure. You're going to burn a little extra fat. You got to squeeze all your eating in 6 hours. It's only 24 hours a day. So if you're not eating 18, you're going to be eating in 6 hours. Now think about it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner between 9 and 3 or 12 and 6. Yeah, that's asking a lot for most people with jobs and kids or,
Right.
other work
Right.
responsibilities, social stuff.
And
But I would
naturally hungry people too.
Well, and then what'll happen, by the way, is then you feel super hungry. And if you don't watch out because you're that hungry, next time you sit down for a meal, you're going to overeat. Remember
Overeat. Right.
overeating? Remember what
Right.
that does? It fills up your
Right.
gas tanks
Right.
100 times bigger. Now we're going to make some more and
Yes.
some more and some more. All right.
Yes.
You don't want to do that. Okay. So let me tell you a more reasonable way to think about this. 18 is of fasting, hours of fasting is good, but 12 hours also works. And we've seen this in human studies. Someone fasting for 12 hours and eating for 12 hours, they'll lose 7 or 8 pounds for sure over a period of time. If they actually fast for 18 hours, they'll lose more. They'll lose 13 or 14 pounds. So fasting longer does give you a little bit more, but 12 is enough to give you a good, healthy start. And most people can stick with 12 hours. Let me tell you how I do it as an
Mhm.
example for 12 hours. Okay, I'm giving it, it's not exact how I do this, but I'll explain it in a way that I think everyone can get behind and make it really clear. You're supposed to sleep 8 hours a day, right? I mean, we know that that's important for clearing the toxins out of your brain, for resetting your immune system, and just better quality sleep overall. 8 hours a day. So that's what, 11 and go to bed 11, wake up at 7. All right, maybe you sleep a little later, maybe you sleep a little earlier. It doesn't matter. Let's just say, for the sake of this example, you go to bed at 11, you get up at 7. That's 8 hours. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, here's how you get to 12 hours. All right. If you eat dinner at 7 o'clock, like a lot of people do, and you finish at 8 o'clock, I'm not talking about a European dinner where they're eating for 3 hours. I'm talking about, like a regular American dinner where, by the way, people unfortunately in America wolf their food down. They're done in 15
Right.
minutes.
Yeah.
All
They're
right.
done in half an hour. Right. Right.
Right. So, but let's say give yourself an hour to eat where you can actually eat mindfully and savor your food. Okay. So let's get an hour. I think it's plenty. Put your dishes away. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but they're snacking all throughout the evening after they push their dishes away. Oh, I'm sitting on TV. I'm going to take a bowl out of this. I'm going to start thinking, wait a minute, I need a little ice cream before I go to bed. Oh, one more slice of cake or pie. All right, you're eating actually all night long until you go to bed. So
Mhm.
but imagine if you did this instead. Enjoy your dinner, make a really nice dinner, enjoy it. When you put your dishes away, don't eat after that. You're done. That's what it means by putting your dishes away. You have completed your eating for that day. Now let's say it's 8 o'clock. You put your dish, you eat at 7, stop at 8, put your
Mhm.
dishes away at 8, go to bed at 11, do the math. 8 to 11 is 3 hours. Now you're going to
Yes.
sleep for 8 hours. Three
Right.
plus 8 is 11 hours. Now you get up in the morning, let's say it's 7 o'clock. And this is actually what I do. When I get up in the morning, I take my time getting ready. I take a shower, brush my teeth, I put on my clothes. I will go for a walk. I will read a book. I'll check my emails. I don't do what my mom taught me to do instinctively when I was a kid. Hurry up, get up, go to breakfast, catch that bus, don't be late for school, right?
Yeah. Eat
I
your
mean, does that sound
cereal.
familiar?
Yes. Right.
Right? Okay. I mean, we're patterned to do that because
Right.
that's how our parents taught us to think. We're adults. We don't need to do that. So basically, I take my time. By the time I actually sit down to eat something for breakfast, it's about an hour after I got up.
Mhm.
Now let's go back and revisit the math. Put the dishes away at 8.
Eight.
Go to bed at
Yes.
11. 3 hours
Yes.
plus 8 hours. It's 11 hours. One more hour in the morning. Click. Now I've
Yes.
hit 12. Now,
Yes.
12 out of 24 hours, half my day is spent with my metabolism in fat burning, fuel burning mode.
Mhm.
That's the benefit of 12 hours of intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Now, if I skip breakfast altogether, by the way, All right. And I sometimes do this because I'm so busy. Sometimes I forgot to sleep. Or when I was eat, or and when I was in medical school, we were so busy in the mornings. Like if we had to go to the operating room, sometimes we just didn't have time to eat. Yeah, you don't eat till lunch. You're getting now all of a sudden you're not doing 12. Now you're doing 18. All right.
Right,
Now I can tell
right,
you, as long as you don't overeat, and
right.
and as long as you can kind of get into that cycle, but I'm telling you, 18 is good. 12 is just
Yes,
fine.
good. Yes,
So
yes.
you
I
can
love
kind
it.
of that should be your get
That
out of
helps
jail
me.
card, Myrna.
That helps me because I'm trying to do the 15, 16 hour. I never went to 18 and I'm hungry. So yes, 12 hours is fine because I eat at 6. So
Okay.
that is perfect. All right. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for that little injection.
Well, listen, these are all life tips that are based on the new
Yes.
science of the metabolism, and where we don't have to be robots to follow a formula. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the numbers are not set in stone. Everyone's an individual, and we all have our own ways that will work out. Listen, the reason that diets don't work, and the reason that you want to eat to beat your diet, is that you can never stick to a extreme diet. That's why diets fail. All right,
Right.
and the healthiest way to live is to do it in a way that you can stick to it every day because this just becomes natural to you.
Yeah, it becomes a
And the other
lifestyle. Yeah.
it becomes a
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. And by the way, the other thing that you have to do when it comes to food is you want to do things that you want to eat things that you enjoy,
Right.
right? So much of our association with food and health is about deprivation, fear, guilt, shame. You're a bad person if you do this. Look,
Yeah.
that's really not the way to live.
Right.
You know, we
I
should
absolutely agree.
we should
Yes.
lean into the foods that we love that are also good for our health, good for our
Mm-hmm.
metabolism, good for our health defenses. Why not?
Yes, I love it. I'm loving this conversation. There's a couple of light bulbs went out when you're talking. All right, so now let's talk about your book. Eat to beat your diet, burn fat, heal your metabolism, and live longer. All those things. We touched on everything except living longer, but we do know that when we put good fuel in our body, then we live longer. So we didn't have to touch on that. So, why did you write the book? Tell us and tell our listeners what you want them to walk away with after reading, where they can get it, your website, your social media handles. It's the time
Yeah.
to talk about
Well,
you.
yeah, no. Well, thank you very much for that, for letting me talk about my book. So we already talked a lot about the things that are in my book, but I'll explain when you get my book. I'll explain what's in it. First, it's in three parts. The first part tells you these amazing jaw-dropping things that caused my jaw to drop and my eyes to open about the metabolism. So here's just a couple of teasers for you. We are not born with different metabolism. We are not born with a fast or a slow metabolism. Our metabolism is exactly the same out of the box, like the operating system in a laptop. Oh, so you mean I'm not cursed with a bad metabolism that I got to deal with my whole life? No, you're not. It's out of the box, it's your operating system. Number two, when we reach our middle age, turns out our metabolism doesn't automatically slow when we hit our 40s and 50s and 60s.
Really?
Amazingly, our metabolism from the age of 20 to 60 is rock stable. That's how we're designed. Our operating system is designed in our adult life to be completely stable. It's so what happens is that it's not that a slow metabolism causes us to gain weight. It's that gaining weight and growing extra body fat slows down our metabolism. You're
Mm.
not cursed with this. You have the agency
Mm.
to make a decision to use food, use fasting, use your lifestyle to burn away that extra fuel. When you burn away that extra fuel and
Nice.
lighten up your body, what happens is your natural operating system, your metabolism naturally rises to the surface. Okay.
Wow.
You are in charge of your metabolism because
I
it's
love it.
hardwired. Okay. It's like
Yes.
putting an antivirus program into your computer so that your operating system can work again. That's
Hmm.
powerful. That's very, very empowering. And that's a section in my book. And then talking about some really interesting parts of fat. Did you know that fat comes in different colors? Okay. Fat comes in, look, fat is brown or fat is white. Those are the two colors. The reason that, and I'll tell you what they look like. White fat is lumpy, bumpy, wiggly, jiggly. It's the stuff under your arms, under your chin. White fat is the muffin top. Okay. It's on your thighs. It's the butt. All right. That's the stuff that most people see because
Right.
it's under the skin, subcutaneous. But the stuff you can't see that's also white fat is the stuff that's packed into your body tube. Okay, that's called visceral fat. Visceral meaning gut fat. And that's why when
Yeah.
you actually gain your waist size, okay, that's a lot of gut fat, but you can shrink it with foods like I talked about
Mm.
earlier. Okay, so that is the fat that you want to keep under control, not just for aesthetic reasons, vanity, but also because that gut fat, you got to really get that stuff under control.
Yeah.
That is like a baseball glove of
Yeah. Yeah, I
choking
know.
your
I heard
organs.
them saying that that's the worst kind of fat to have because it'll affect your organs. Right.
That's right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the other kind of fat, good kind of fat, is not lumpy, bumpy, wiggly jiggly. It's called brown fat. And in this case, brown is the kind that you want because it is paper thin. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? Fat's thin? Apps, this kind of fat is wafer thin. It's like a piece of paper. And it's not close to the skin, it is close to the bone. All right. And where
Mm.
is it located in the body? It's plastered on the side of your neck. It's underneath your breastbone. It's around under your arms like a girdle, a little bit behind your back, a little bit in your belly. And what brown fat does is actually ignites. It lights up like a space heater. So if you have a, by the way, if you have a stovetop and you are cooking something, you want to boil some water in your stovetop. What do you do if you have a gas stove? You turn the nozzle, click, 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 whoosh. That's what brown fat does. Cold temperatures will
Mm.
light it up, but so will food. Foods like chili peppers, tomatoes, pomegranate juice, avocados, beans,
Mm.
chickpeas, all these things, onions. They'll light up your brown fat. Now, when brown fat
Wow.
lights up and goes whoosh,
Love it.
okay, you know what it does? Where does it get that fuel from? Now, in your kitchen, your stovetop is getting that fuel from your gas line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think the brown fat gets that fuel from when it's burning in your body after you eat food? Certain kinds
Mm-hmm.
of food. It's stealing that fuel from your white harmful fat.
Mm-hmm.
Brown fat burns down
Wow.
white fat. Good fat fights bad fat. Eating food can help your good fat fight bad fat. And you're like, oh my God,
Wow.
that's kind of a mind-blowing concept. You can eat food to fight fat. Isn't it the other way
Wow.
around? You can't eat food to like, shouldn't you be not
Wow.
eating to fight fat? So this is why I call it eat to beat your diet. Here's the
Yeah.
secret to actually do it. So my first mind book is all about that. All right.
Right.
It reveals all the science and all the stuff. I show pictures of it, stuff that you haven't seen before. And I know you haven't seen it before because I actually got permission from scientists to publish pictures that most readers will have never ever seen before. So it's really cool. You'll get to see some cool stuff. Now, the middle of the book is actually me I wrote the middle part of the book. It's all about food. And the way that I wrote it is I imagine you, the reader, uh, uh, sitting in my grocery cart, the way that you used to sit in your mom's grocery cart, and
Yeah.
she's pushing you around. Okay, like every kid
Mm-hmm.
has in this case, I'm pushing you in my grocery cart and I'm whispering in your ear as we go around the grocery store, what's good for your metabolism, what fights body fat. Go ahead and put it in the cart.
Mm.
We go right through the
Nice.
produce section. We pick up the avocados, we pick up the bell peppers, we pick up the bok choy, we pick up all this onions and the garlic and the mushrooms. You like mushrooms,
Right.
the enoki, the
Yes.
maitake, the portobellos, all that stuff. We pick them up, put them in there. And then I take you into the middle aisle. And you're like, wait a minute, aren't we supposed to avoid the middle aisle? Didn't people say shop only the perimeter of the grocery store? Yeah, you know what? There you go
What's
again.
in the
It's a
middle
good.
aisle? The middle aisle is all the sauces and stuff.
Well, inside the middle aisle, there's a lot of junk in the middle aisle. There's a lot of junk food for
Right.
sure. There's a
Right.
lot of stuff that's not good for you. There's a lot of ultra processed foods, but I don't want people to ignore the fact that there are dried foods, canned foods. There are lots of pickled foods, a lot of good stuff in that middle aisle that you shouldn't ignore. I call
Yeah.
that whole chapter treasure hunt. Go
Yeah.
into the middle
I
aisles to look
actually
for
get
the
the
treasures.
olives. Olives are good for you. I get my olives
Oh,
from there.
yes.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Olives, olive oils, chili peppers, dried pepper flakes, dried
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms, beans, lentils, legumes, chickpeas, buckwheat. I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff, oats, a lot of great stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is I whisper in your ear, here's what you put, and I show you all the evidence of what's good for it,
Wow.
what's inside it,
Wow.
and how much you should eat. And then I
Love
take you
it.
to the seafood section. Now, not everyone likes seafood, but I ask people, please give follow me along and give me a chance to explain to you why seafood is so good. And everybody goes like, oh, I don't like salmon or anchovies or sardines or mackerel. Like those are way too fishy. Well, the new research shows that stuff like shrimp and clams and squid, all these kinds of things. There's all kinds of goodness in the seafood section that can actually help you fight body fat because it's got marine omega-3 fatty acids. And even seaweed, which is
Nice.
now a new snack, can be really good for you. And then finally, beverage section, right? Before you go to the checkout aisle, you got to actually go to the beverage section. Now,
Now,
filled
this
with
one I have to
sodas.
hear because we don't want the sugary drinks, and we don't want the drinks with NutraSweet. So what's left?
All right. Well, listen, this is the thing. And this is why I wrote it because I got the same. Listen, as I was preparing to write my book, I went to the grocery store over and over and over again to try to imagine the experience that we all have, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
just exact what you said, Myrna. You walk down the beverage aisles, you're surrounded by all this stuff, bottle after bottle of different colors, but most of those colors don't exist naturally that you see inside those bottles. All right. I don't want that stuff inside my body. All right. But I will tell you and this is what I do. I try, there are some fruit juices that are good, but I actually show you three drinks that I call beverages I call the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity of beverages that are good for you no matter what is water, water. Okay. Now, why is water good for your metabolism? Why does it burn body fat? Guess what? When you drink water that is room temperature or colder, so I'm not talking about hot water, I'm talking about cool water, room temperature water. What winds up happening is that you wind up your stomach has these temperature sensors that actually light up, and it says, "Oh, it's cold. I got to warm up," because your stomach is trying to keep your core temperature warm. And when that happens, guess what? It fires up the brown fat so that you're burning extra fuel. Just drinking water will let you do that.
Mhm.
Pretty amazing about water. Now, the other parts of the Holy Trinity: tea, green tea, oolong tea, matcha, but even black tea, Earl Grey tea. And there's a special kind of tea that I write about called pu-erh tea, Pu apostrophe er. Pu-erh tea is a fermented tea. It comes from the village of Pu-erh in China, and it's a digestive, so it actually helps you digest your food a little bit better. And it's very very fermented. It is a probiotic tea. It has good healthy bacteria for your gut. It builds gut health. Now,
Mhm.
all of these teas have been shown by research to improve your metabolism. Don't add sugar,
Nice.
don't add cream or milk, drink it
Wow.
straight. This is how they do it in Asia. And I'll tell you, it's good for your metabolism. And then coffee. Let's move to coffee. Now, I actually did a gap year before I went to medical school. I picked up a wonderful habit of enjoying coffee in the morning and throughout the day, espresso, cappuccino, but especially espresso. I can tell you that I like a good strong cup of coffee. What's in coffee? Well, it's a bioactive called chlorogenic acid, chlorogenic, chlorogenic acid. Chlorogenic acid starves cancer by cutting off its blood supply, protects your stem cells, builds gut health, helps protect your DNA, raises your immune system, helps your immune system be a little bit stronger, and it actually helps fight harmful body fat,
Wow.
fires up your brown fat to burn down your white
Wow.
fat, shrinks your waistline. So coffee, the holy is part of the holy trinity. Water, tea, coffee, those are really healthy beverages.
Wow.
All right.
Wow. That is
And then
amazing.
it,
I
it is
I I'm like almost stunned for words.
well, look, I'm just telling you, and by the way, I write about 150 foods you can find in the grocery store at any budget. So this is not an approach where you have to spend tons of money ordering, super, like crazy things that are making somebody else rich. This is about every person going out there on a regular person's budget or even a tight budget, especially in today's world, and picking up foods that are actually good for you and good. They taste delicious as well. And so, and by the way, the last part of my book, so the first part's about the amazing jaw dropping stuff. The second's about the food. The third part is really me coaching you how to adapt this to your everyday life, no matter who you are and what your life is like. I give you kinds of guidelines and some tips on how to do it. And the most important thing is to personalize it for yourself, make it work for you. And intermittent fasting is part of it. I call it opening your eating window and closing your
Wasn't it?
eating
Yes,
window.
yes,
You just have
yes.
to figure out what time you want to actually open and close your window.
Hmm.
And like to try to avoid a lot of complicated kind of like diety jargon. And how do you put it
Perfect.
all together? What are some tips you can do to get even more bang for your buck, more out of things? And so this is very, very practical. This book is really for everyone, no matter where you are in your health journey. And if you want to find it, you can buy this book anywhere that books are sold. If you want it delivered on your doorstep tomorrow, you know where to go online to order it.
Awesome.
But
Right.
if you have a local family-owned bookstore, I love these little tiny bookstores. You can go in there and see what's on the shelf and flip through things. Please support your local bookstore. I love that. But also you can come find me on my website. It's at drwilliamlee.com, Dr. William Lee. And that's also my handle as well. You find me on social at Dr. Dr. William Lee, LI. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. And please come sign up for my free newsletter because I, every week, give out information from all the research that I'm doing and I have done about information that you can use, little tidbits, little nuggets that can actually help you tweak your life, make small decisions that can have a big impact. And so I welcome everyone to, the world of healthy eating. And I guess you asked me about what's the takeaway message. Look, I think it's time, and the science tells us we can rediscover the joy of food, rediscover the enjoyment of eating, and align that with our desire for good health. We can love our food and love our health at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. No, this is amazing. This was amazing. You have just debunked a lot of myths. One of them particularly that we just barely touched on was the fact that, yeah, you see tall, skinny people that are eating all kinds of junk, and we say, oh, they've got a good metabolism. And then you see somebody that says, I just think about food and I get fat. So, see, you've just debunked that. And I felt that I walked around saying, and I've heard doctors on my podcast say this, that you get to 35 and your metabolism slows down. But you just said that's not true.
Well,
that
listen,
yeah.
Listen, the discovery, the statement
Yes.
I just made about that, it
Yes.
comes from research that's only 2 years old. It's brand spanking new research.
Brand
It's
spanking
so
new.
smoking,
Okay.
it's so smoking hot that most doctors haven't heard about it yet. Okay. And this is the study, by the way, of 6,000 people across 20 countries. There were 90 researchers that were involved in it. And this is actually what we found. They studied people that were 2 days old and 90 plus years old to take a look at what happens over the course of a human lifetime when it comes to metabolism. And it is frankly eye-opening and jaw-dropping what it is. So by the way, I do want to actually help your listeners and viewers who basically say, wait a minute, I'm in my middle age. I know that I'm actually having difficulty with my weight. And what's actually happening is, here's the answer why. It's called life happens. When we hit our 40s and 50s and get into our 60s, same time that the so-called metabolism is changing, what's happening is we got lots of stress, we got lots of distractions. We got relationship stress, we got kid stress, we got job stress, we got economic stress. We're worried about the climate, we're worried about the war, we're worried about politics. And so what happens is that because we're so distracted and so stressed out, stress by itself helps us grow body fat. Worry prevents us from getting much good sleep. We're not getting good sleep. Our brain isn't clearing out our toxins. We start making less good decisions. When we make less good decisions, we start reaching for those harmful snacks that are already engineered to make us crave. We eat more. Oh, we live in abundance. We don't eat a little bit. We eat more. All right. And so what happens is that we start growing extra body fat. Remember what I told you. Metabolism hardwired to be rock stable. But when we are distracted and we have these behaviors that cause us to grow extra body fat, what happens? Extra body fat slows your metabolism. So the metabolism doesn't automatically slow. It's that life happens and it causes our metabolism to slow. So we can do something about it.
Yes, I love it, by eating the right foods. But listen, you didn't even have to explain that part to me, because that analogy of the laptops was so imprinted on my mind. So I knew that it was because of our lifestyle and things that we do and stress and all that. Because, yeah, that analogy of the laptop is it was actually perfect because what you put a whole bunch of things in your laptop where you have a virus or whatever. So yes, that's amazing. So, but listen, one of the things that I do in the show is we talk about mindset. And what you believe is how you're actually living. So if you live and you think that all I've got to do is look at food and I get fat, that is going to be your experience. So when I interview guests like yourselves, and I'm changing that mindset, say no, your metabolism is based on the foods that you eat, or the quality of like your gas that you put in your car. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well, I'm glad I'm glad that it resonated with you, but it really is true.
Yes,
And by the
yes, it
way,
did.
I think that there's a lot of I mean, metabolism is actually quite complicated from a scientist's perspective, but I think that when we try to outthink the science and it's really complicated and not everybody understands, then we get confused.
Right.
The easiest way to take charge of our life is to keep things as simple as possible,
It's
and
true.
eating healthy, good for your health defenses, good for your metabolism, helping you
Mm-hmm.
fight body fat is not
Mm-hmm.
difficult at all. Let your body do the work, make a few good
Yes.
choices, don't
Yes.
overeat, and love your food. Go for those ingredients that you already love. So basically, like in my book, there's 150 ingredients that actually help fight body fat. I tell people, buy my book, buy a Sharpie or take a Sharpie out, the big fat magic markers, and
Mm-hmm.
be bold. Go ahead and circle the foods that you already love,
Right.
because then you can know that you already like foods that are good for your health. Start
Yes.
there. You're way ahead of the game.
Yes. Well, listen, I'm sold. I was gonna order from Amazon, but you just guilted me, and I'm gonna go to my local Barnes and Noble and pick up a copy. And yes, because yes, I'm in my middle age, and I'm like doing the battle. I'm walking, I'm meditating, and all that. But yeah, my body weight is not where I wanted to be, and I definitely want to learn how to do it naturally. I
Yep.
love the 12-hour fasting that you just mentioned to me, because I know that I can work with that.
Yep.
Getting to 16, 18 hours, I'm hungry, and I'm doing little things like, you know, um, I had Dr. Mindy Pelz on the phone on the show, as I mentioned to you, and she talked about these fat bombs, and that's how I get through my little fasting, by eating these fat bombs that help me. But yeah, so now I just got to do it naturally. So that's really great. So I thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for being on the show. We had a really, really good conversation. We covered quite a few things, and I know our listeners and those watching on TV or on YouTube, got a wealth of information. Because why do we want to do that? We talked about fat. Fat is bad. If you have too much of it, we know that it causes inflammation, like the analogy of the gas that's
Gasoline.
spilling over, right? Love that. Really, really great analogies that I'm going to talk about because I remember them. And yes, and we don't have to go to these strict diets. All we need to do is eat foods that are going to help us get rid of body fat. That is absolutely so amazing. And we didn't talk much about the gut microbiome, but I'm almost sure that the foods that are going to be helping to burn that fat, like the gaslight, also going to help her with our gut microbiome. So
Yep.
that's amazing, right? Agreed?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I am committed to bringing you guests like the quality guests like this, like Dr. Lee, so that I can help you to live your best life now. So before we say goodbye, Dr. Lee, do you have any final last words?
Listen, I think that anybody who has struggled with their weight, cursed their metabolism, or been really uncertain what to do, I think if you read my book, Eat to Beat Your Diet, you're going to find some easy ways to actually get in charge of your own life and enjoy your food at the same time.
Yes, yes, yes. Couldn't have said it better. Couldn't have said it better. And definitely follow Dr. Lee on Instagram because he's a good cook. Like I've seen him cook mushrooms and I've seen him cook a whole bunch of things. So hey, just watch, follow him on Instagram and learn. So thanks again, Dr. Lee. Thanks again for
Thank you.
tuning in. So until next time, namaste.